and is guilty of provable war crimes. Pentagon, CIA and other sources agree. "Trump is toast," was how a CIA source described the situation. Trump has been pushed by his Zionist handlers into trying to start World War III because these religious fanatics still think they are somehow going to start a war between Gog and Magog, kill 90% of humanity and enslave the rest. To this end, Trump ordered an attack on a Syrian airbase where Russian personnel were stationed. That is also why Trump tried to start a war with nuclear-armed North Korea last week. The situation with North Korea was designed by the Zionists to provoke two ultra-macho antagonists, North Korea's Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump, into a situation where neither man could back down without losing face. The North Koreans said they had a right to test missiles etc. anytime they want, especially on the 105th anniversary of the birth of their country's founding father Kim Il-sung. Trump said, "If you do that, we will attack." So, a face-saving solution was engineered with a missile that blew up immediately after launching. The North Koreans were able to claim they went ahead and did their test despite Trump's threats. The Zionists were able to hint they sabotaged the test with unspecified secret weapons. The important point being that Zionist attempts to start World War III failed yet again and will continue to fail. These provocations are just one sign there is something undeniably dysfunctional going on with the Trump presidency. A few weeks ago, Trump was invoking President Andrew Jackson and hinting about nationalizing the Federal Reserve Board. Now he is saying FRB Chief Janet Yellen can have another term in office. He also turned from provoking the Chinese and accusing them of being currency manipulators to brazenly sucking up to them and denying they manipulate their currency. These flip-flops may be connected to the arrival of yet another bankruptcy deadline for the United States corporate government, in this case the expected bankruptcy of the U.S. corporation's Puerto Rico subsidiary on May 1. Despite efforts to paint this as a municipal bond-type problem, this could trigger a domino effect that finally takes down Zionist Central in Washington, D.C. Sources close to the Japanese emperor say the arrival in Tokyo this week of P2 Freemason Lodge and Vatican representative U.S. Vice President Mike Pence, as well as long-term Rothschild agent and U.S. Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross, was for the purpose of trying to get money from Japan to kick the can down the road yet again for the U.S. corporation. There is also a group calling itself the Goldman family that is trying to convince the emperor to either cash fake bonds with astronomical numbers on them or else place their man Ichiro Ozawa as Prime Minister of Japan, the sources say. Neither of these things is going to happen, the sources add. While it is certain the Republic of the United States of America will get continued support from the rest of the world, the Zionist-owned U.S. corporation will not. The entire planet is sick and tired of their antisocial and criminal behavior. The signs of this are everywhere to be seen now. Getting back to Donald Trump, last week after trying to start World War III he was forced to say we are not going into Syria. He has also been denied a meeting with the Pope during the G7 meeting in Sicily scheduled for May 26 and 27, a sure sign he is isolated, Pentagon sources say. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, who was also recently denied a meeting with the Pope, yet again exposed himself as a Zionist slave last week when he talked about North Korea sending sarin missiles to Japan. Israel has been exposed as behind the false flag Syria sarin attack, along with former CIA boss John Brennan, John McCain, HR McMaster working for their Saudi and Israeli masters. Pentagon sources note. Zionist bad boy Jared Kushner may be under counter-intel investigations for his ties to Bibi, Benjamin Netanyahu, Russia, George Soros, Goldman Sachs, Heinz Kissinger, and Rupert Murdoch, the sources add. This article about Trump's Zionist handler Kushner shows his real agenda, shown in the description. It notes Kushner's involvement with the college-based Chabad was a particularly important part of his resume building and that the Chabad-Lubavitch sect is an extremely radical organization that espouses dogmatic and time prophecies that are overwhelmingly favorable to the Jewish race. Kushner is also almost certainly a Satanist, because why else would he pay 3 times the previous price to buy a building with the address 666? Japanese military intelligence for their part say the real source of the problem is the Satanist-controlled XIS think tank in Georgetown University, and suggests taking out that institution as a shortcut to ending world terrorism. For now though, Goldman Sachs is the one that is being targeted, Pentagon sources say, noting that Goldman made a huge bet so it could rake in profits from higher oil prices and got busted with no invasion of Syria. Trump is also guilty of war crimes for his attack on Syria, since he attacked a sovereign nation without congressional approval or approval of the United Nations, violating the War Powers Act as an impeachable offense, CIA sources note. The pretext for this illegal attack, a supposed sarin attack by the Syrian government, has now been fully exposed as a complete fabrication. An interview with Syrian President Bashar Assad by the French AFP Newswire was widely quoted in corporate media outlets like CNN, Bloomberg, Reuters etc., and makes clear even to the few remaining Zionists Kool-Aid drinkers out there that the entire Daesh sarin terrorism business is run by Western powers. The interview can be read at the link in the description. The West was not supposed to represent perpetual war, false flag attacks, fake news, terrorism, drug dealing, etc. The West I grew up in and represented by my father as a Canadian diplomat is supposed to stand for world peace, democracy, human rights, free press, ending poverty, protecting the environment, etc. This is what it will revert to once the terrorist-sponsoring Zionists or Khazarian beast is finally put down. Pentagon sources note, the Big Three, China, Russia and the USA, are cooperating on North Korea, Syria, the Ukraine and Daesh to usher in the global currency reset. Part of this effort is a continued campaign to cut off the supply of drug money to the Zionists and to Khazarian Mafia. To this end, they say, a CIA complex in Afghanistan was nuked to stop drugs trafficking. U.S. troops were also sent to Somalia for the first time since 1994 last week to stop Daesh and Israeli infiltration of East Africa, the Pentagon sources say. It is also worth noting the Khazarian efforts to keep up the fake Cold War with Russia are fading, and that the G7 refused to impose any sanctions on Russia despite Zionist-inspired efforts to make this happen. Instead, the fact that Easter came on April 16 for both Western and Orthodox Christianity is a sign of a new age of peace and prosperity. The key to this is to remove from Khazarian hence their last and biggest source of power, that being their control of the process of creating US dollars, yen and euros out of thin air. Henry Kissinger is the man with the master codes that allow this currency magic to take place, which is why he is the most hunted man on earth. If he is not killed or captured, then the system needs to be shut down and rebooted. Rest assured, the bad guys like Kissinger are all being taken down. George Soros, John Kerry, David Rockefeller, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, etc., are vanishing from public view. Now we have also had the first of the long-awaited arrests of U.S. government officials on charges of treason. In this case, former Hillary Clinton State Department employee, Candice Marie Claiborne, was indicted on treason charges, that is to say taking bribes from the Chinese to provide them with U.S. state secrets. Prosecutors say this will be the first of many who will be brought to justice. Removing the rot from the system is vital, but we also need work on fixing the planet to this end. The White Dragon Society will hand-deliver a letter next week to a person not Kissinger who has the key to start the concrete here-now process of turning this planet into a paradise. We hope to hear a positive response. However, changing the direction a planet is moving in is like turning a supertanker around at sea. It has to be done in such a manner as to not tip the ship over. That is why we are not giving any specific dates for an announcement. We are sure through that the good guys are winning and humanity will be liberated.
~, 2017. Benjamin Fulford, The Trail That Led to the Black Sun, Will Humanity Learn from the Past? Sitsshow.blogspot.com By Justin Dayshaw. In the latter portion of Benjamin Fulford's newsletter from the week of March 13, he described meeting high-level figures in Japan and Asia who revealed the secret religion or beliefs of some of the elite power players on Earth. Apparently, they worship the Black Sun, a negative solar deity that personifies the antithesis of the creator, a force of death, destruction, and chaos instead of life, creation, and order. This is strikingly similar to the satanic cabal mentioned by several other noteworthy researchers and insiders, such as Mark Pacio and Jay Parker. In the 90s, Pacio was recruited into the Church of Satan by Anton LaVey. Pacio thought that Satanism was nothing more than a religion for personal empowerment, but he discovered it was much more insidious than that. And after attending grotto meetings in the dead of night wherein member lawyers, doctors, and politicians spoke of their abject hatred for the unawakened masses and their continued desire to enslave and torture people, Pacio had a change of heart. Parker is a satanic ritual abuse survivor who was raised in a generational dark occult family. His father claimed to be an Atlantean warlock, and his mother a witch. Both his parents spoke of the religion of the Illuminati, the worship of the Black Sun by the elite, stretching back tens of thousands of years. Recently, David Wilcock and Corey Goode have claimed that the origin of this dark group traces back to a pre-Adamic period, some 55,000 years ago. Allegedly, a transhumanist cybernetic race of giants warred in the solar system's distant past, once occupying a planet that was destroyed some 500,000 years ago, now home to the asteroid belt. They fled to Mars after the destruction of their home planet and eventually fled to Earth in a space ark that became the moon of Earth. Finally, they settled in Antarctica, cannibalizing their motherships, and building several highly advanced civilizations. They interbred with the human elite on Earth at the time, forming what is known today as the Illuminati bloodlines. Whether or not this account is true remains to be seen, but could provide another link in the chain of the hidden history of Earth. According to Pacio, the Black Sun represents the dark Lucifer archetype. Lucifer is known as the light-bearer in occultism, the personification of the bringer of truth, wisdom, and knowledge. This cosmic archetype is amoral, meaning it can embody both light and dark attributes. Anyone can make contact with this cosmic archetype, but the nature of the knowledge they seek, and ultimately how such information is used, determines if it is positive or negative, harmful or beneficial. And the dark elite of this world used various occult rites to make contact with negative forces who gave them knowledge of how to enslave humanity with expert skill. The Jesuits, in particular, devised several cruel methods of using child human sacrifice to create a heavily traumatized soul that would become a tool for the necromancers once the mortal coil had been shed. Using these specters as emissaries of darkness, insidious groups received intelligence from their dark overlords. According to some sources, there were legions of ghosts created over the centuries that fell victim to the dark occultists, who used them like etheric spies and mercenaries. Papal bulls is one example of a satanic rite that is intended to bind a soul of a child to a dark purpose. The Black Sun represents the dark Lucifer, the bringer of knowledge for those who seek pain, suffering, enslavement, and power. This archetype has been worshipped by many different elite groups, under many different names and guises, such as Moloch, Baal, Satan, Lucifer, and so on. And in the modern world, the average person worships the Black Sun via their materialistic immoral lifestyle. For example, a consumer in occult symbolism is someone who has allowed their consciousness or spirit to devolve into a materialistic and egocentric zombie, one who doesn't care about truth, morality, and justice. Such people seeks to satisfy all their base desires, even if it means hurting others or turning a blind eye to harm. In this sense, the masses indulge in cravings of all sorts, deceived into worshipping death, destruction, and chaos, all under the illusion of technological progressivism. Here the account provided by Fulford. By Benjamin Fulford. All these world changes taking place as described above have their origins in a power shift at a very esoteric level of reality. We will try to summarize again briefly below the forensic trail followed by this writer that led to the Black Sun entity whose defeat has made all these changes possible. Years ago I was told by agents sent by then Japanese Finance Minister Hizo Takanaka that there was a plot to kill 90% of humanity in order to save the environment. Asian secret societies had heard the same thing when they wiretapped a meeting at the Molech, Baal, Set, Satan, worshipping Bohemian Grove. When they offered to help fight these Satan worshippers, I suggested to the Asians that the problem in the West has highly concentrated at the very top of the world power structure and that the average Westerner would be totally appalled at the idea of killing 90% of humanity. We came to the conclusion that the solution to the problem lay in targeting the very tip-top of Western power. This led to Leo Zagami of the P2 Freemason Lodge visiting me in Tokyo and inviting me to visit the P2 in Italy. There I was taken by Vincenzo Mazzara, a cavalier of the Teutonic Knights, to a cathedral in Milan where there was a stained glass image of their god, the Black Sun. Mazzara told me it was a black hole in the center of the galaxy that communicated to them via the gamma-wave spectrum. What I encountered at the cathedral was a black void of what can only be described as anti-life, an entity that feeds on the life force. Apparently for thousands of years this entity has given enormous power and wealth to a select few in exchange for having them feed it human and animal sacrifices. This is what I call the Satan-worshipping Khazarian Mafia. The vision of the future held by P2 members like Mazzara was one of total war and destruction on this planet, something they thought was inevitable. However, an incredibly powerful light force entity confronted this black sun and threatened to delete the entire universe into 0 and 1 of black and white unless it backed off. That is because the forces of darkness were getting so strong they threatened the entire structure of the universe. The entity backed off and fled this universe. This was seen as the Norway Spiral event. The result is that while the universe before this event was like a top spinning out of control, it is now back in harmonic balance between opposite but mutually beneficial forces known as yin and yang or male and female. For this reason the entity known as Satan has ceased to be life-destroying absolute evil but has instead transformed into a benevolent goddess working in harmony with the male aspect of the universe. Because this entity fled the universe, the lesser evil entities that worked below it were no longer able to resist the forces of light. They have been systematically purged and soon the last of them will be finished off. At this point a quarantine that has been placed on this planet will be lifted and Earth life will be free to expand into the universe, according to these esoteric sources. Since we are about to experience exponential expansion, it is very important that we set the initial starting parameters at the most optimal possible level. That is why we must now set up a transparent, democratic, meritocratic world federation combining the best practices of all cultures to preside over the human expansion into the universe. Of course, seeing is believing, and until we actually see and experience these changes personally, people must focus on improving the here and now of their real lives. Hopefully, the rest we shall see. If Fulford's claims are accurate, then it suggests there is a core aspect to dark occultism that has various sects and variants throughout the East and West. And almost all such insidious groups are aligned under the common banner of enslaving humanity. Or to put it another way, they are all interested in maintaining their illusory status as masters and elites via their suppression of the people. Fulford claims that some of these groups have turned the other cheek, and are now working to end the deplorable practices of the past. As a people seeking to gain knowledge and freedom therefrom, we would do well not to believe such things blindly. By all accounts, it appears that the war for freedom and truth has been raging for almost all of human history, at least over the past 10,000 years. The common thread is one of dependency, ignorance, and dogma in the enslaved masses, the foundation that makes tyranny possible. The elite maintains their power because the people believe in that false authority. And the price of such belief means the enslavement of all. Will this time in history be any different? Will we, as a people, set aside our differences and work together to take up our divine right and govern ourselves for the benefit of all? The hard truth that all generations must face is that all people are ultimately responsible for the welfare and prosperity of others. Whether we learn this lesson or not remains to be seen. But the opportunity to shift society into a golden age is within our grasp. Thanks for listening and watching. Subscribe and share. 2017. Rothschilds surrender U.S. corporation, bankrupt USA Republic accepts shared human destiny. Posted on benjaminfulford.net. By Benjamin Fulford. The Satan-worshipping cabal suffered crushing defeats last week on all fronts, multiple sources agree. The biggest news is that U.S. President Donald Trump announced last week that the cabal-owned United States corporation founded in 1861 has been replaced with the Republic of the United States of America that was founded in 1776. For details on this, see here, alquinbramerton.blogspot.jp. That is why the talk of U.S. government functions shutting down on March 15 as the U.S. $20 trillion debt limit was reached failed to materialize. The debt belonged to the corporation, not the republic. The corporation has been declared bankrupt and the debt null and void, multiple sources agree. That is because United States Corporation Secretary of State and slave to corporation top shareholder David Rockefeller Jr. Rex Tillerson failed in his effort to get funding for it in Asia last week, Asian secret society sources say. Japanese imperial family sources say Rockefeller bagman Henry Kissinger showed up with Rex Tillerson and both threatened the imperial family in a failed effort to get them to cash a bogus 4,000 yen, $40 trillion. World Bank bonds so that they could keep the U.S. corporation going and place their flunky Ichiro Ozawa as Prime Minister of Japan. Ozawa is despised in Japanese government circles and will not be allowed near the Prime Minister's office, so the request was denied, Japanese right-wing sources say. However, the U.S. military is determined to get rid of current Prime Minister Shinzo Abe and Finance Minister Taro Aso, who blocked the deal, because they are desperate for funds to keep their international operations going. That is why they are flooding the Japanese media with stories exposing Abe's scandals. Abe represents a faction of extreme right-wingers who wanted to start a war with China and so is definitely tainted goods as well and will likely be removed. There are ongoing discussions over exactly who to replace Abe with, and the White Dragon Society is recommending the relatively clean and competent Hideo Higashikokubaru as an interim prime minister who would represent the consensus of the Japanese bureaucracy and other power brokers. Asian secret society sources, for their part, say there is no alternative to Abe at present and so he must be given a new script to read. The discussions are ongoing. The Rothschilds and the Rockefellers also tried to keep themselves from going bankrupt by taking over North Korea. North Korea is the location of a vast treasure of precious minerals and other underground resources located around the sacred Korean Paeksu Mountain, the Asian Secret Society sources say. It can now be confirmed that the French branch of the Rothschild family staged an assassination of a fake Kim Jong-nam in Malaysia recently so as to discredit Kim Jong-un and remove him from power. They hope to replace him with a fake eldest son of Kim Jong-nam, Kim Han-sol, who they hope to present as the legitimate heir to the Korean throne. The Asian secret societies were not fooled one bit by this and were told it was the Rothschilds, not the CIA, who were behind this failed plot, White Dragon Society sources say. Rex Tillerson, for his part, publicly threatened last week to take over North Korea by military force on behalf of his Rockefeller masters. Rex can bark all he wants for Rocky, but no war will be allowed on the Korean peninsula, is what Pentagon sources had to say about that. There may be war in the Middle East though, in order to take down the Satan worshippers occupying the government of Israel, Pentagon sources say. To force Israel to make peace, U.S. top General Joseph Dunford met last week with King Abdullah II of Jordan to cement an alliance against Israel, Pentagon sources say. As a result, Israel is now surrounded by a military coalition of Syria, Lebanon, Hezbollah, Egypt, Jordan, Iraq, Iran, and Turkey as the big three. China, USA and Russia force it to make peace, the sources said. Faced with this situation, Israeli Prime Minister and Satan worshipper Benjamin Netanyahu flew to China on March 19 to seek protection from paramount leader Xi Jinping. Pentagon sources predict Bibi will also get no love from Xi, who may demand a stop to Israeli attacks on Syria, a return of the Golan Heights, a two-state solution for Palestine and ISIS defeated so China can rebuild the Middle East and promote Eurasian integration. The Saudi royal family is also in China seeking protection after failing to get asylum in either Japan or Indonesia, WD's sources say. While in Japan, an obviously fake King Salman, who looked much younger than the real king and who was not senile like the real king, was paraded in front of the TV cameras. What this means is the real king is dead and Americanized Prince Mohammed bin Nayef is now king of Saudi Arabia. That explains why Saudi Prince bin Salman flew to Washington last week to seek protection from Donald Trump. Protection was denied, Pentagon sources say. Trump also refused a bribe from Salman aimed at getting him not to enforce the 911 anti-Saudi terror law, the sources continue. Trump is also now onto the fact that Bill Gates and son Masayoshi were acting as surrogates for Salman with their offers of a $100 billion investment fund, they say. Trump also refused to take a bribe offered by German Chancellor Angela Merkel last week, not go after Rothschild flunkies like John McCain and Hillary Clinton, the sources continue. That was what was behind Trump's public refusal to shake Merkel's hand. The Pentagon sources are also saying pressure may be applied on France or special forces and CIA operatives inserted to rendition Obama, another Rothschild servant from Tahiti, to face drugs, wiretapping, sedition, and other charges. CIA sources for their part are saying that Anthony Weiner and other pedophile criminals are singing like canaries and providing the FBI with plenty of evidence about high-profile pedophilia and related blackmail rings at the top of the Western power structure. The Trump regime is also determined to finish off the illegal drugs industry in South America. That is why the U.S. Coast Guard not only survived budget cuts, but may even get more money, naval, intelligence and military assistance to bust the Bush's Colombian and Mexican cartels, the sources say. There is also evidence that efforts to stop drug money laundering are starting to pay off. U.S. financial industry sources say South American drug barons have been using their drug dollars to buy Iraqi dinar as a way to launder their money. However, since the Clinton/Bush faction lost the U.S. election, these dinar are never likely to become a usable currency, the sources say. Asian secret society and WD's sources agree, though, that since years of drug war failed to do anything to eradicate the annual $2 to $3 trillion illegal drug business, the long-term solution is still going to be to legalize and regulate narcotic substances so as to minimize the damage they cause and keep money out of the hands of crime gangs. There are ongoing top-secret negotiations towards this end, the sources say. Asian secret society sources are also saying that since the Western powers refused to hand over control of the US dollar system, they now expect it to be gradually replaced by a system involving 4 or 5 key currencies. In the meantime, the Republic of the United States of America has agreed to support a Chinese concept of a human community with a shared destiny. This Chinese idea was accepted by unanimous vote last week at the United Nations Security Council. The Chinese have also been given a green light to go ahead with massive infrastructure plans aimed at making the world more interconnected. As a part of this, the Republic of the USA is ending all support for military activities in places like Africa and the Middle East aimed at disrupting Chinese infrastructure work, Pentagon sources say. Western power centers have also begun to endorse the WD's proposal to set up a Western Future Planning Agency to organize major projects to improve world living standards as well as restore and enhance natural ecosystems. This will mean replenishing the oceans with fish, restoring rainforests, turning deserts and Arctic regions green and expanding out into the universe. Hopefully there will soon be announcements to this effect accompanied by the release of massive funds to make it possible. There are also preliminary negotiations